Hi there, my name is Jake Riley, and today we're going to be going into the level design process that I used in order to make this level called the Catacombs in Mega Man Maker. So let's go ahead and get started with the intro screen. What I wanted to do first and foremost was to establish the tone of the piece that the players would be going through, what they would be experiencing. So I started off by picking Shade Man's music. Shade Man is a vampire character, and he's also the final boss of the stage. So I figured that it fit best to use this music, and it has also had this sort of creepy feeling to it. So I picked that, and we have our level gear, which opens up with this really dark sunset that really contrasts nicely with the way that Mega Man looks and the foreground elements, and also just looks kind of eerie with the red and the black silhouetted trees. To direct the players to where they're supposed to be going, I have these 3 health pellets on the ground, which teaches them to move right. So let's go ahead and move right. Here we encounter our first enemy and defeat him pretty easily. And the player then learns here about doors. Now, doors are something that I used a little bit in this level. The most important door that the player needs to open in order to progress is actually this one, because every other door that they encounter is either optional or it gives them something really special. So let's go ahead and head down here. That little segment that you just saw is something that I used in order to establish with the player just how deep they were going. And the bricks here that I used also establish how old the setting is, because they're covered in moss and they look kind of dirty. That was the first enemy that we encountered too. That enemy is one that we will be seeing a lot throughout the course of this level because it fit the theme of the setting a lot better than any other enemy that I could find. And so we're just going to go ahead and use our special weapon here to deal with him, because the Elect Beam has a vertical shot as well as a horizontal one, and that was one of the most important things that I wanted to teach the player when they started the game, is that there's going to be occasions where that weapon's ability to shoot upwards is going to be beneficial to them, in particular with the final boss of Shade Man himself. And we have this little bomb dude here, and what we can do is we can wake him up, and we can shoot him right there like that. So here's where we have a choice. I could either go down and use the key, or I can head over to the right and not use the key. The player has a choice here because there's health up here. I incentivize them to go this way, just to let them know that there are some secrets in this level that they can use that are going to be very beneficial to them. Now here, we can use the Acid Rain in order to deal with these 2 enemies that are right here in front of us, so that's what I'm going to do. That lets the player know that the Acid Rain is very, very powerful. It's a very powerful weapon that they can use, but also it lets them know that there's not a whole lot of it, because you have the ammo bar on the right and you lost about 3 of it when you used it in one go. But we have a key now, which adds to our benefits. And the reason I added that weapon energy down there is to direct the player to go downwards. What I would have done originally, and what I wanted to do, was to have the health be floating like kind of in the middle, like in this area. But since Mega Man's drops are powered by gravity, I could not put them there. So the objects would have fallen just down to the area below where the player would need to be going. So let's go ahead and head down. And something else that I wanted to note here about my choice in the tiles is that they weren't actually originally going to be this color. Originally, they were going to be that gray that you see everywhere with some of the Pharaoh man tiles in the background to kind of establish how old the setting is. But since I'm going with a more Catacombs theme, it didn't fit properly with the whole aesthetic of the level if I had these hieroglyphic tiles in the background. Sure, it would establish that this is an old place, but it just wouldn't fit the theme. So let's go ahead and head in here, and this is where I first introduced the spikes. Now the player can see that there are spikes up there, and they look pretty dangerous, but there's also spikes that are up here and down there. So either way that the player goes, they have to deal with the spikes. But this is also to teach them, based on what they did earlier with the sliding, that they can slide under spikes like this. And there's another key for me. And then we're going to go ahead and slide underneath here again, just to give the player, again, a sense that they are learning something new, and they are mastering a new skill. We're going to go ahead and head up here like this, jumping over the spike here too. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and move on the right, because we have these spikes here. And this is also where I established the jumping pattern for the level. which is holding down the A button and kind of standing in the middle of the spikes. Here, the player learns that they can slide underneath up to 2 spikes at once. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump over this spike here. On a second, I just did the... Alright, here we go. And then I introduce an enemy with the spikes to let the player know that, yes, you're going to be encountering enemies alongside of the spikes at the same time. We go ahead and jump here. And we're going to go ahead and fight these enemies here. And we have these platforms here. The reason I picked the bone platform is because the stone bricks, while they do look nice, they do not make the correct shape that I would have needed in order for that to work as a regular stone platform. So instead I decided to use the bones because it fit the catacomb theme, and bones are synonymous with the catacombs. Now we are introduced to another enemy here. This is in this area as far as he is to let the player know how he works by shooting his head at you and flipping around in order to make sure that he can't be damaged. And this is where there's another rhythm established with the jump platforms here. I wanted to just add a little bit of tension here with the platforms because of how the player would need to jump to get across them. But also I reward them with the E-tank if they happen to be carrying some keys with them. And then there's that extra life up there. However, I will not be needing that. But there is something that's established here too. It's that there are 3 spikes and the 1-up is right in the middle of them, or right towards the end. So the player then subconsciously figures out that, hey, I can slide under up to 3 spikes at a time instead of 2. So we're going to go ahead and demonstrate that right here, like this. Now I'm going to go ahead and swap to the Thunder Beam again, and then just kill that real quick. And this is also another spot where the player can learn about their special weapons, which I have the Acid Rain and the Thunder Beam. And we're going to go ahead and use that. And that just lets the player know how powerful the Acid Rain is. We can slide underneath these 3 here, and let's keep moving forward. We could either go down, or we could go up. And since there were goodies on the upper level, I'm going to go up. And then I am rewarded for my exploration with an M canister. Oh boy. It's a lot of enemies. Let's keep moving forward. Now, this is one of the sections that I'm most proud of. I'm really excited about this. So, we have the drop platform here. It has health. I am low on health. I want that. And then the platform will drop me. So I now know that these red platforms open up and drop me into the ground below. And so we have a bunch of them that are around this area. And now I introduce them alongside enemies after introducing them with spikes. Just to increase the tension and make the player play maybe a little bit more carefully than they were before. Hup. Okay, and go up here. And now we have to kill this enemy up here, all the while avoiding the one below us. Again, using the same pattern of jumping that I established earlier on in the level. And I'm going to keep going up because I'm getting the groove together. Ooh, an E-tank. And now we can go ahead and head down. Now, the reason for that little block being there is if the player chooses to go up and they notice this area along the way, they can't hit the spikes that are on the way down. They can only hit that block. I didn't want to be cheap with the spike placement in this because I recall that being a problem in older Mega Man games. And now, this is where the tension is at its highest. There's the drop platforms with no stable platform in sight other than this one, and there's spikes all over the ground. So let's go ahead and just get moving. Using the same pattern of jumping that I have throughout the entire level, the player just moves forward like so. Now, something that's really important that I wanted to address about my process with this section is that as the player is moving through here, I wanted to introduce some enemies. However, I knew that if I introduced too many, then it would be a difficulty spike. So that's why I have that one enemy in this section, because the spikes make the area dangerous enough as it is. And then using the same pattern that we have, and this is where the tension is at its highest. And we can just go up like this. And there's 2 enemies. We'll kill that one, and just keep moving forward. And then some triple spike here. I'm gonna go ahead and get my ability. And just get through these guys. Nice and quick. And so we are at another checkpoint. And this is just another area that has a bunch of enemies in it. And this is where the player knows that they are nearing the end. This ladder will lead them up. Something that I also establish in the choice of blockage here is that the green blocks were used to symbolize the area that the player was in was deep underground. Now, the gray blocks are used to symbol that they are closer to the ground, that the area that they're in is newer and more well-maintained. So let's go ahead and do that. And they can see the rocks, which also let them know that they are close to the top. And then the spikes here, same pattern as they always have. And I have this enemy here. Just get rid of him real quick, and then jump over that. And now we are very low on health as we are getting through to the top here. And this is the mausoleum that they are exiting, very much similar to the one that they did when they were first entering this area, except now they're going up instead of down, getting out onto this field. And I picked this background in particular because I felt that it fit the theme that I'm going for the final section, which is kind of a spooky castle sort of vibe. And now we have this. And now we have the boss level. Now the boss, I originally had Skullman as the boss, but then I swapped it over to being Shademan because Shademan fit a lot better with the mechanics that I had established earlier on in the level, such as the jump and needing to shoot an enemy that's above you using the Elect Beam, and the Acid Bomb being able to hit everything at once. And so I'm going to go ahead and collect this health here real quick, get that checkpoint, and now we're going to go fight the boss, who is inside of his castle fortress that I have here. And I made his primary weakness also this weapon here, just so that the player can defeat him using the techniques that he learned along the way. And this brings the Catacombs to a close. Thank you.